Welcome back to Next Level Rides. In today's episode, we're gonna delve deep into the N54 mods we think, mostly me, that are worth your time and effort and your hard-earned Canadian pesos.
So if you disagree, it's his fault.
Oh. Taylor and I have been working on a handful of N54s over the past couple of years. He's learned a few things and I've learned some things as well. Taylor, what do you have?
E92 335, big single, 8-speed, port injection, kind of your basic stuff, but we've definitely done a lot to it.
Yeah, so basically a little bit more than your basic Bolt Ons, but between Taylor and myself, we've been there where we've spent our hard-earned money on certain mods. Some things are really not worth it. Some things you would definitely probably do things differently if you had a second go at it. For me, obviously, this is my 2009 135i with the infamous N54 engine, not the Boat Anchor 55, that garbage, trash-infested.
Headache-inducing.
Yeah, it just gave me a bit of an aneurysm so I can feel a bit of a drill in my temple. But anyways, that thing that certain people like to modify and think is great. BMW saved themselves, they went with the B58, but today we're focusing on the N54. Along with this one, I did have one prior, 2008 BMW E90 with upgraded hybrid turbos and a whole bunch of other small things. So again, between the two of us, we've learned some things are not really worth the time and effort, but we're gonna give you a list in no particular order as to what we think are the best mods for your money.
We definitely made a lot of the mistakes doing like mine is like version 1 of this. Mine is everything this is, but less polished. Like it was originally upgraded turbos, upgraded twins, and it was meth, and then it finally went to single turbo, and then it went to port, and it's just like...
That's methanol injection.
But like through all those, we definitely learned, and then we made obviously a way more polished and Tony spec version. Mine I could drive and go 4x4 off-road, and I could care less.
Mine's a garage princess that likes to fry tires. If you made the unfortunate decision to buy your first BMW, let alone an N54, they're probably 16 years old now, roughly, and they're gonna have a plethora of issues. A lot of them aren't gonna be stock, and if you don't know how to work on one, you could be at the whim of an independent shop or BMW themselves to try and help you diagnose and repair your vehicle. One of the first things I would recommend, whether your car is stock or aftermarket, is get yourself an MHD tuning dongle. And the reason I recommend one of these is with the universal one, or the red one as they maybe call it. Do they call it the red one?
No, I don't know.
I think it's just called the universal one. Get yourself one of these. Any tuning software or platform that you're wanting to use, you'll be able to use your MHD dongle for diagnosis or diagnostics purposes with Pro Tools. And there's a handful of other apps that you could end up getting that will utilize this as well, along with coding programs like Beamer Code. This will end up being a very vital item that you should have for your BMW.
It can help you when you like first pick it up to kind of customize it exactly how you like through some of the coding stuff with Pro Tools, Beamer Code. Like mirrors folding in when you hit the lock button.
Euro sequential hazards. You could have
brake force to play.
Yeah, brake force on, I think, LCI, or if you have LED taillights.
Coding the diff so you can do burnouts.
Yeah, fun fact, with these, typically it has a setting where if you do enough of a burnout, a lot of people will end up noticing that it starts to reduce the engine power. It's BMW literally telling you it thinks your brake pads are overheating to cut the engine power.
Diagnosis for, like, you can activate your fuel pump, you can activate injectors, you can live monitor data for trims, variances, bank 1, bank 2.
Or if you go to buy a car, I don't know how many times when we've gone out to buy a vehicle, and quite literally with XHP, you open up the app is free, you plug in one of these, you go to connect a new vehicle, you click on diagnosis or diagnostics, it will literally tell you the health of the transmission. For peace of mind, like what, with a B58 or something, the only thing you'd be of concern with is, or of concern about is transmission, just to make sure the clutch values aren't way out to lunch. And especially 6 speeds on our 450 kilometer diesel. I checked it, and fortunately this gave me a bit of peace of mind that the transmission was fine, used, but not going to be an issue anytime soon.
And it'll pay for itself. Like, it's an N54, regardless, you're going to do at least one injector in its lifetime. It's going to pay for itself in the cost that you would go to somebody to code that injector.
And another thing is, for the overall cost of one of these, I think they're pretty cheap, maybe 120 bucks US or whatever it ends up coming to. Even if you go to an independent shop or BMW directly, the majority of them end up costing anywhere between $150 per hour to $180 per hour. You could end up running into situations where they charge more, and for diagnosing a vehicle, a lot of them just end up keeping an open tab where you could end up being a few $100s into a diagnosis, when this literally in your cell phone could help you out in a fraction of the time. Or coding a battery. I don't know how many times BMW would charge, what is it, an hour and a half to code and program a battery. With one of these, 5 minutes, done. The next mod I think is definitely going to be worth your money is going to be tuning. The majority of these, there's only really two solutions for tuning. One would be MHD and one would be JB4. Now, there are pros and cons to each one of them. We specifically pick JB4. You also get an MHD backend flash, or you can flash a backend map through the MHD. So technically you're going to be using the both of them for the most part together. You can solely flash with MHD directly. There's a lot of off-the-shelf maps. If you're planning on going with stage 1, stage 2, something a little more aggressive, depending on the fuel octane available in your area, MHD may end up being all that you need. Now for our situations, and I would speak specific to mine, is I do find JB4 is fantastic when it is considered a boost controller. It is fantastic for all of the safeties, and I do find it is fantastic for the integration, especially for the port. There's going to be a lot of people out there that say, oh, you need to go with reflex and whatever else. You guys need to keep in mind the difference, and I'm just going to touch briefly on this so you can hate me in the comments. The difference between batch and sequential injection above 3,500 RPM, it's a moot point at this point. If you were to go solely with port, then yes, I would agree. Sequential is definitely the way to go. For what we're doing with our vehicles, when port is quite literally taking the load off the factory fuel injection system, it doesn't matter.
And if sequential is really the end all be all, JB4 is now doing it as well.
There you go.
Their new box is sequential firing. It's also been tried, true, tested many times. It saved me motors many times.
34 pounds of boost, spinning all four at 120K an hour in the winter.
It saved a Zaka motor a few times, and I know a lot of people that have issues with reflex, so I would have to be very
Josh's
persuaded.
car.
Exactly.
Yeah, literally was chasing a headache for weeks, disconnected it, no problems. And he literally said he's ditching it, forget it, not worth it.
Yeah, if you were to do like a very basic build, I'd probably just do MHD, nothing else, no JB4, no nothing, just strictly MHD. But if you are going to start doing port injection, single turbo, methanol, if you're going to do upgraded turbos, hybrids, I'd start looking at JB4s even just to use as a boost controller and a safety feature.
Yeah, and one thing that you can do is if you decide to have the both of them, you can literally have JB4 to work as your gauges. You can have it to data log. You can use it as a boost controller, or you can shut it off. Now that's getting a little more complicated and it may sound redundant, but on top of all else, I do find JB4 to be an excellent option. And like we were touching base a few days ago, the customer service after the fact, I have absolutely nothing bad to say about Terry. Terry has been fantastic with many hundreds of emails I have sent between myself and him, simply attempting to diagnose, late at night replies on weekends. And that's not to be expected of him, but for the simple fact that somebody supports their product that intently is an absolute seller for me. Not to say that MHD is bad, but at the same point, I'm pretty dead set on JB4. Maybe not on the newer systems, but again, we're talking about the N54 here, and my vote would definitely be JB4, especially if you're gonna be tinkering into stuff. Safeties are excellent, and it does give you some headroom if you want to add additional or to add on to the factory GB4 system. And again, like Taylor was saying, port, methanol, and so forth. The support's out there. It's super easy to use, and the app is good. Maybe not the update.
Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan.
Not a fan of the latest update, Terry. My apologies. But JB4 itself is awesome.
And I guess following on that, like another tune thing that is absolutely crucial, XHP.
Yeah, that's another thing. For a lot of you, if you have a 6-speed transmission and a manual transmission, you don't need anything more than the engine software. But one thing that I do find specifically is when you have a 6 HP, they're only going to be rated for a certain Newton meter of torque. So to utilize anything above stage 2, you will need an XHP transmission flash. Now, a lot of people say go stage 1, stage 2. No, forget all that. Just go right to stage 3. It's going to increase your line pressure to the clutches. It's going to completely change the way the vehicle ends up driving, and it will account for the increase in torque that your engine will output. I've seen way too many transmissions. Ozzy, I'm talking to you because you don't like to listen to me. I've seen way too many transmissions where there's a spike in torque, the engine produces way too much that the transmission can't hold. The transmission says, whoa, hey, hold up, let's pull that down a bit, and you end up getting a spike. Not only does that put excessive strain on the clutches, but it's just gonna wreck your somewhat frail 6 HP in the first place. You can end up flashing with a stage 3. It's great right off the bat. I swear by custom flash settings. I do it for every single one of the XHP flashes that I complete.
Granted, I will say if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it. Don't touch drag mode. Leave that alone.
Leave it. You don't need drag mode.
But activate line pressure pump. If you don't know what you're doing, leave the rest alone.
Yeah. And if you don't know what you're doing and you have a question, email us or let us know in the comments. I'm happy to help you guys out. I've set up, geez, I would say about 100 different flashes at this point, and I definitely know how to work my way around one of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love rambling with my dad, you know? Following the tuning, I guess the next thing to segue into would be the basic bolt-ons. Charge pipe, intake. I don't even know if I would say intercooler depending on what you want to do. Charge pipe for sure, because the plastic ones will break. That'll leave you stranded. But at least you would have a dongle to tell you what's going on.
Yes, and I should mention, the reason the more modern vehicles like a B58 don't require a charge pipe, and I learned this as of late, is the charge pipe on an N54, especially if the motor mounts get a bit weak and plastic tends to age and degrade over time. Just remember, the charge pipe is bolted to the throttle body on an engine that's constantly rocking. And on the opposite side, it's attached to the intercooler that's affixed on the rad support. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Aged plastic and it's consistently moving, it's a recipe for disaster. Definitely get rid of the plastic stuff.
And especially if you're tuned, it's gonna blow up. It's just gonna happen.
100%. Anything over stock boost, it'll pop.
Such cheap assurance, but I would definitely do that. I would definitely do intakes. If you want to go down kind of the full basic bolt-on, I know Tony did a video, I think it was last year, of doing all the basic bolt-ons in a completely stock N54.
Yeah, the YD92.
Yeah, you could go inlets, charge pipe, intercooler, outlets.
If you're stock turbos, don't worry about outlets.
Downpipes.
What did you learn about your eBay VRSF inlets? As we'll touch base on full bolt-ons. Remember, didn't have the steel coil, so they were collapsing above 18 psi.
Yeah.
If you do inlets, I can only recommend the VRSF ones because they have a steel coil inside of them to prevent them from collapsing. We were chasing our tail on Taylor's turbo for the longest time because it was lethargic, it seemed lazy, and we eventually learned that the turbos were attempting to pull way more air than the inlets would allow, and they were collapsing.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I always try to forget about the days of having twins. It was just bad time.
See, multiple revisions. So we have this experience to bring to you guys at home.
Yep.
I don't know how Trump does it. We give you the whole package. No? Okay, back to Taylor.
Oh, hold on, you hurt my brain. Basic bolt-ons, I mean, you can find them from a lot of different people. BMS, VRSF.
CTS.
Thank you.
There's a lot of...
ATS, ARM.
Yeah.
tons and tons of it do them differently. They're all the same thing at the end of the day.
Most of the suppliers, like most of them are just made out of Taiwan or China or rebranded AliExpress stuff at this point. If you're sticking with stock turbos and the impeller wheels, what, 1.75 inches, you don't need 3-inch downpipes, especially 2 of them. So just get some decent stuff. Again, you can't go wrong with VRSF and CTS and something that's tried, tested, and true and has been around for some time. Even if they're manufactured in South Asia, it doesn't matter. The fitment is on point. So to kind of recap, basic bolt-ons, and again, basic bolt-ons could be defined as anything that is relatively easy to install. So could, in most vehicles, you would hear basic bolt-ons or FBO, so full bolt-ons. It's basically intake, downpipe, exhaust. So it could be your dual cone intakes, which ironically, the BMS dual cone intakes are the ones that make the most power for being hot air intakes.
You want proof? Go watch the JB4 page. They literally have back-to-back dyno pulls.
I just triggered the majority of the internet. Hot air intakes don't make that much power. It's sucking hot air.
Facts.
What do you think your turbos are doing? Your turbos are hotter than the ambient air. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into it. Dual cone intakes, if you want to ball out, get the carbon Dynon one. Charge pipe, get whatever. Any charge pipe is better than the plastic garbage unit. For an intercooler, again, depending on your goals, you could get a VRSF, just an aluminum piece like a 5.5 inch or the 7.5, a little bit additional trimming. And if you do want to go that extra step, you can do inlets. It is beneficial above 20 PSI on the factory turbos, but other than that, if your goals are modest, don't even bother. The plastic ones are fine.
And if you're just trying to get like a little bit more power while you kind of save up for bigger modifications or something like that in the meantime, don't get a 5-inch intercooler. Go straight to the biggest one, the 7.5 1K. Again, learning curve for us. We found out with the turbos we were getting choked out at a 5.5 on my twins, and then a 7.5. I gained great spool, great performance. Like, if you're planning on doing stuff further down the line, just get the right parts the first time, or else it's just going to cost you a lot more.
Yeah, you got to figure out exactly what your power goals are. So if it's going to be a modest amount and you really don't want to chase over 400, fine, just get a smaller intercooler. But if you will eventually be upgrading turbos, whether it's twin or single, and you're going to be chasing higher triple digits, potentially 4 digits, which is foolish in my opinion, that's a waste of money, but you'll definitely want an intercooler to support.
Next, but definitely not least, what I think is the most important is interior stuff. Super, super small things can make a huge difference, especially when it's what you see, what you feel, what you look at. It gives the whole experience of everything. Some of the top ones, I would say, steering wheel, whether you want to upgrade from a Sport to even just an M Sport or an M3 wheel to get that really nice OEM plus. If you want to do something crazy like Alcantara and carbon fiber, paddle shifters make a huge difference with how engaging it feels.
Oh, even getting rid of the factory push-pull and converting it to LCI, where you literally just have the dedicated up and down. Huge. Magnetic paddles.
Yep, that gives a really nice feedback.
Just bought a set for the 1 Series because, yes, you need those.
They're wicked. Cluster, like that's a huge one. You spend most of your time staring at your cluster. I've went from digital clusters to now there's an M3 cluster, and it makes a huge difference. Even just taking like your stock cluster and putting white LEDs in it to modernize it.
Oh, like my E90.
Yeah. Huge difference. Paint the needles red, some white LEDs in it, modernize it. It feels a lot better.
Well, especially if you're dead set on an E chassis. Like between Taylor and I, we can both agree and contest that the E chassis is one of the best driving chassis, or one of the last very good driving chassis that BMW has released. You go into the F and the G, they tend to feel a little bit watered down. Maybe the quality isn't as nice. But like Taylor was mentioning, some things you can adjust to make it feel more modern while you still have a really nice chassis that you really do enjoy driving, especially when they don't have the electronically assisted steering and you have a dedicated steering shaft and conventional power steering system.
The nice thing is there's so much love for these vehicles and this platform that people are retrofitting brand new M4 seats in the vehicles, front and rear.
Easily.
F chassis steering wheels, Apple CarPlay, People were putting ID6 or whatever it's called, the new...
Oh, they're up to like ID6, 7, or 8 or whatever.
Whatever it is.
For a few $100.
Yeah, if you want to do the OEM Plus instead of just throwing an aftermarket unit in.
Yep.
There's so many little things you can do, but it makes such a large experience. When you get into the seat, you look forward and that's what you're seeing and feeling and listening to. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And then probably like speakers. If you're an audio nut, speakers, absolutely.
That's kind of the biggest thing for me when it comes to the interior. Even though digital clusters are really nice and it does modernize the vehicle, what I do find that the e-chassis does lack is a decent audio system. You did end up getting a few different setups between bass, professional, and Logic 7. And compared to most other vehicles for this year that had come out around the same time, they're better than most, but it still leaves a lot to be desired. I recently installed the setup from BeamerTech, the Alpha 1 speakers. They were gracious enough to be able to provide us the component speakers and the tweeters along with the subwoofers for under the front seats. The factory setup in this car was a Logic 7 and it was okay, but it was an absolute game changer moving up to the Alpha 1 setup for the simple fact that there was a significant difference in the highs and the mid-range. Damn. Okay. For me, the biggest thing, and for years when I used to work installing home theaters and so forth, I was very critical about the sound quality. I personally can't upgrade to an Android head unit because it may reduce the sound quality, but fortunately, this was the perfect happy median that I think would be the best option for the e-chassis. For installation, as opposed to a custom setup where you would have to have a completely separate amplifier, wiring, and so forth, these are plug and play. If you're half okay with a screwdriver, some panel tools to pull off the door panels and to be able to literally unplug one of the speakers, 3 screws, replug it, put the door panel back on, it's foolproof.
It's definitely one of those modifications where it's like, you want to go to the garage and you want to have that instant gratification.
Oh yeah.
Easy to install, like you know you're in and out, you're not all of a sudden dropping a bolt in the motor and now the motor's coming down. It's an instant gratification, it's a fun project to do, not a single turbo swap.
So Alpha 1 does have more setups than just E-chassis. Again, on their website, they do have E, F, and G chassis.
I, J, K, L, M, N, P. Sorry, the alphabet got stuck.
Ignore him. The installation is very easy and it is truly plug and play. I have since adjusted the settings specifically on the 1 Series to fine tune the highs, the mids, and the lows. And from where we originally had tested it, it's again, a pretty night and day difference. If you're thinking about upgrading your sound system, now is the perfect time. BeamerTech's Christmas offers have you covered with exclusive deals on their speakers. Use the code on the screen or in the description below to get 10% off your purchase. If you spend over $1,500, you'll receive an even bigger discount of 15% off. Plus, with every purchase, you'll get a free DIY Essentials kit that includes everything you need to install your new setup. The code is valid until December 31st, so take advantage of this chance to transform your sound system with BeamerTech. These are the list of mods that we definitely feel are worth your money. Some of them can be pricey, some can be a bit subjective. So this is the list that we think that you should end up taking into consideration. Don't waste your money. Some things may be a little bit more expensive, but you're doing it once, not twice. So really in the end, it's not all that bad.
And don't forget about probably the most important one, getting a Tony. With all that N54 headache, you're gonna need some maintenance. So he starts at $100,000 per year. It's just going up from there.
Again, to touch base on Taylor saying, not everyone's gonna have a Tony. Not that I'm anyone special, just a YouTuber, but that's okay. I'll take it. Definitely maintenance. You're just gonna have nothing but headaches and you're gonna essentially shoot yourself in both feet if you do or prioritize modifications over maintenance. So do it proper, get the maintenance sorted, or at least purchase a vehicle that has been maintained that may be on the stock side, and you're gonna be well ahead than buying something that's a little bit kind of raggedy, but it has some cool mods. So do it proper, don't waste your money, save yourself some sanity.
If you guys want to hear us ramble for an hour and sit here while we drink hot cocoa next to a fireplace with a Christmas tree, let us know. I'm sure we could shoot the crap for an hour on what we think would be the ultimate N54 or B58, what would be a great project.
Yeah, if you guys have any specific questions, like what mods should you purchase to make X amount of power? Yeah, we can definitely give you our dead honest opinion about it. We have the experience, fortunately, and yeah, we've wasted a fair bit of money getting to the point where we know what you should and should not do. So if you have any questions, definitely reach out to us and be happy to help you out. If you liked the video and you like the information provided, feel free to like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next one. My coffee's cold and it really sucks. Tim Hortons, do better.
I think they changed it. My tea tastes different too, so I think they've changed what they did. I'm gonna start going straight to McDonald's.
Ugh.
With marshmallows.
Tim Hortons, what's up? Do you need to talk?
Is this on? Ah! Yeah, they both light up.